Okay, awesome. Had to switch computers. I don't know. I was all set up on my regular laptop to do this. Okay, now what am I going to do? Hi, everyone. This is, can you hear me? Can you all hear me? Sadie girl. Sadie just started barking. And let me see if I can plug in my good mic. Hi, everyone. Okay, good. You can hear me. So I had, let me show you. Look at, I had my whole area all set up here. And my regular laptop isn't working for some reason. Hang on. Can you still hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? This sucks. Loud and clear. So you can still hear me okay. Okay. Can you hear me better with this mic, or does it not change it at all? It's on, yes. Hearing you loud and clear. Then is this mic better? Better. Yeah, no change. About the same. Okay. I'm not sure. I've never used this mic. I'm on my Chromebook, which I very rarely use. I just pulled it out today. Hi. All right. So I'm going to put that away. All right. And everybody can still hear me okay? This is really awkward because this is not how I wanted to do it. And I expected to be like all ready and professional. Okay. Hi, Sadie. Say hi. Say hi. Hi, friendlies. You want to say hi? Look at, see, look up here. Look. Oh, say hi to everybody. Oh, you want to give me kisses? Okay. Want to give me kisses? Everybody says hi. Okay, we're going to give you a treat. Okay. Hi, everyone. Sadie will help you be professional. Yeah, right. Hey, okay. I filled up we found this actually at a camp. Oh my gosh. And it's her favorite toy. I put kibble inside here. And Sadie girl, look, you want to go so mom can do her work? Okay. All right. Hey, everyone. So this is supposed to be not my normal kind of off the cuff live stream. This is a Tuesday as I see it video. And I asked you all last week if you wanted to hear about the Electoral College or the Mueller report. And thank you for saying this. I'm still not through the Mueller report. I was listening to it and it kind of got boring, honestly. So I was excited to do this because there were some things about the Electoral College that I wasn't extremely familiar with or sure about. So this allowed me to do what I love, which is research and learn. Kind of gives me an excuse to dig deeper into things that I like. So thank you for that. And excuse me. Oh, what did I do with my water? There it is. All right. So let me see. Now, I don't normally do as I see it. I don't usually do as I see it live streams unless I'm, hi, where'd you go? It's right there, Sadie girl. Look. Okay, you want to say hi, everybody? Look, show everybody your beautiful face. Show everybody that beautiful, see that beautiful face. Look at her. We have a lot of coyotes in the area, and so I think that's what she just barks about. We heard them last night. Sadie girl, can I work? Can I work? She's like, no, I want to sit on your lap. So, okay. I've been like totally like adamant, like I can't do a regular as I see it video live because of, everything that goes into it. I don't just speak off the cuff unless it's a live one, but when I'm doing the research and everything, I need the freedom to, stop the video and do more research in the middle of a sentence if I need to fact check it kind of while I'm editing it to make sure that, I check in my notes and to make sure everything is correct. But I'm in a spot that I don't have the best upload signal. So I don't know that I would have been able to get a video up for you tonight. So I decided to go ahead and do it live. So it's going to be a little like, I like to be a little bit more polished in these videos than I normally am in my normal everyday life videos. And so it may not be that. I might have to do some reading of my notes. And that's part of the reason I had the setup that I did. So it didn't look like I was reading a lot. But I do want to make sure I'm giving you accurate information. So I don't want to talk a lot off the cuff because this really is important, I think. And let me see. Life isn't polished right now. If that's true, it's not. But I don't want to be another person adding to the misinformation. And I've been very, very adamant about that. Very adamant about saying in the live streams that are off the cuff that this is off the cuff. This is my opinion. But in these, where I'm actually digging in and doing the research and providing historical context and things like that, I really do want to make sure I'm fact checking myself. And I'm not going to have that luxury today. So maybe you can all help me. Yeah, I know the Trump ads suck. I'm sorry about the Trump ads. I get them too. Whenever I'm on YouTube, there's Trump ads. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So for those of you who might be new here, Carolyn's RV Life is about Carolyn's life living in an RV. I know, sorry for those of you who've been here a while and have to hear this every time. This is my Tuesday series where I get to talk about things that I am passionate about. And I'm passionate about politics and history and what's going on in the country. And many of my core audience have, when I started doing this, expressed interest in it. And so while it's not popular, the series is not popular, it is something that I enjoy and that many of my audience enjoy. And if you are not here for politics, you are free to leave and watch on Thursdays and Sundays for the other stuff. And so I'm already looking to see. Thank you, Gypsy. Thank you, Haven on Wheels. And by the way, you guys moderators, don't be afraid to ban. You don't have to just delete. I don't know if you also have the option when you're deleting a comment to ban people. Yeah, thank you. So don't be shy. And sometimes people get shut down and they get banned who it might have been a mistake, and they'll email me and I'll say, I'm sorry, it must have been a mistake. And if that happens, no big deal. Weed the garden. Weed liberally. Conservatively, liberally. Yeah. All right. So today I am talking about is this a weird angle? All right. How's that? Today I am talking about, EL. Wow. Thank you so much for the $50 super chat, EL. It means a lot to me that you value my work and my channel and want to invest. Sadie's more interested in you guys than even her treats. Thank you, EL. That means a lot. I really appreciate that. And okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on my talk. I'm going to focus on my notes. I'm actually going to turn off this screen so that I can't see myself or the comments. I will check in through the different sections to take questions. Okay, this is going to be kind of like my old way of doing talks. So what I'm going to do. And where did it go? There it is. So I can't see anything right now. Oh, if I log on here, I can. I don't need to see me. Okay. But I can see comments over here. All right. I'm sorry. Like I said, I was hoping to be a little bit more organized on this, but of course my computer didn't I will try. My computer didn't cooperate. I do see the super chats. They stand out. They're super bright. And if I see the side of my eye, I will try to acknowledge them as I see them. If I miss a super chat, I am really sorry. I'll try to go back during my break. But like I said, I'm really nervous about this. This is going to be a challenge for me to not have the luxury of editing. So bear with me, okay? And without much further ado, I'm going to get started. So I'm going to talk about the Electoral College today, and I'm breaking this talk down into three different segments. Of course, I'm going to talk about the history of the Electoral College, where it came from, why we have it. Then I'm going to talk about, and I also have a lot of fun facts that I put in here that I didn't even know about. So I think I guarantee everyone here, no matter how much you know about the Electoral College and the Constitution, I have a feeling you're going to learn something today. I did. I'm going to talk about how the Electoral College works today, what electors are, what is an elector, how are they chosen, how are they selected, And then in the end, to close it, I'm going to talk about the problems with the Electoral College. And I'm going to talk about both the opponents of the Electoral College and their take on it. And I'm going to talk about those who, opponents and advocates. I'm going to talk about what the pros and cons are, basically, of the Electoral College. And then I'm going to talk about what it looks like to change. Should we get rid of the Electoral College? Should we do something else? And this is where I really learned some interesting stuff. So stay tuned for that. All right. You know what? I am going to, okay, let me go ahead and get started. So once again, all of the sources that I used for my research in this video are listed, and they're already there. I put them there today. They're in the video description. So they're, in addition to all the print media, articles and things like that, they're listed there. There is also a playlist, and that's at the top. It says playlist. I created a playlist of the videos that I watched as far as research too. So for any of these topics, I mean, this is a complex topic. I could talk about it for days. So what I recommend is, if you want to learn more, go check out the resources and read more about it on your own. All right. Hi, Larry. Hi, Homestead Hippie. Hi, Nancy. Hi, Ann. Hi, George. Hi, Mary. And Gary Nichols. I like that you posted your sources so that I could read them ahead of time. Oh, cool. Awesome. I was afraid it might spoil it if I did that. So good feedback. Thank you. Thank you, Gary. Good to see you. And Veterans for Trump. Besides Jimmy Dore, I highly recommend watching Mark Dice. Okay. If they are conspiracy theory pushers, we're deleting that comment. I don't know who they are. If it's not real news, we're deleting that comment. Okay. All right. So how Sadie, she's in her toy box. She has a toy box under my feet. All right. So why do we have an electoral college? Where did it come from? So of course it is in the Constitution, and it derived from the Constitutional Convention. So to give this some context, after the American Revolution, the founding fathers wanted to replace the Articles of Confederation, which was a loose agreement with a very weak central government, and it gave too much power to the states. And there were the Shays Rebellions, a bunch of unruly farmers and Revolutionary War vets rose up against the governor of Massachusetts. Sound familiar? A bunch of unruly farmers and vets rose up against, this is in 1787 or early 1800s. In the Shays Rebellion, they rose up against the governor of Michigan because Massachusetts. Oh, the one that happened recently was Michigan, because they didn't like how things were going. So the founding fathers, again, thinking about the rich white elite males, did not like that the populace was feeling so revolutionary. So we won the revolution. Sadie, no, you can't have a mousetrap. So I'm sorry. I thought she would be mellow. So we won the revolution against Britain, but everybody was still feeling very revolutionary. Everything was very new and very exciting, and people were still trying to figure out what this new land was going to look like. What was the government going to look like? And the Articles of Confederation, which was a very loose document that the founding fathers felt was giving too much power to the states, wasn't covering all of the unruly mobs who were rising up, still in that revolutionary mindset, rising up against state governments. And so they decided that they needed a stronger central government to lead the nation, to lead this United States. And so all of the individual conventions that they had through the Articles of Confederation eventually led to a constitutional convention in 1787. And the founding fathers, fearing that the revolution had gone too far and that the average Joe was getting too big for their britches, and we're going to tear down all the social structures that were in place, meaning elite rule, moneyed, landed, white, powerful elite rule. They were afraid of that. The rich elites and the farmers, they were afraid of losing power against these angry mobs post-American Revolution. And So they decided, to do the Constitutional Convention, and they came up with the Constitution. And this is what they were up against. So this is a little bit of background into how we even got a constitution. It was really the elite moneyed class worried about the unruly mobs. And from the Khan Academy, this is a quote from the Khan Academy, which is one of the sources in my playlist or in the description. They were tasked with balancing a representative government with too much democracy, or this is a quote, what they called a mobocracy. They called democracy mobocracy, okay? That unruly mobs who lacked virtue of elite educated people would foolishly tear down a government they weren't prepared to be a part of. So this is from, I'm sorry, I'm looking at I can't see anything. I'm looking at my microphone, not at you guys. So this is what the founding fathers, this is documented from verbiage from the founding fathers who created the Constitution. They were afraid of too much democracy. And yeah, I know we're a democratic republic, blah, blah, blah. But, let's not split hairs. It's basically the difference between a democracy and a republic it's a very thin line between a representative government and how that representative government represents us. But let's just call it a democracy for now, or that's what we're shooting for. And they were afraid of too much of that. And so that's why they decided they needed a constitution. So again, they were afraid unruly mobs who lacked virtue of elite educated people would foolishly tear down a government they were not prepared to be a part of. When I was researching this, I was really amazed about how much is ringing true of what we're going through today. What we're going through today is basically everything the founding fathers were trying to prevent with the Constitution, and yet somehow we still got here. So an example of this, an example of the founding fathers' real motivation is that it wasn't until the 20th century, let me back up. It wasn't until the 20th century that the Senate was hang on. Up until the 20th century, the Senate was appointed by smarter, educated, elite men who knew what good leadership looked like instead of by the people. So until the 1900s, the Senate was appointed by the smart, quote unquote, smart elite and not by the people. That's how little the founding fathers trusted the average Joe. And it was the Joe. I was going to say, and Jane, but there was no Jane back then. The average Joe, that's how little they trusted the average Joe to be able to govern themselves, that they appointed the Senate. And it wasn't until the 20th century that changed. They believed that there had to be some control or guidance in the system to prevent the average Joe mob from making uninformed mistakes or falling for a fancy-talking, charismatic snake salesman who sold them a bill of goods. That's exactly what the Constitution and the founding fathers were trying to prevent. Stupid, my words, stupid, uneducated, again, my words, and I'm sorry, but I mean, I'm paraphrasing what they were saying. They just really didn't think that average people who didn't have land and education could govern themselves. And they were trying to prevent, catastrophe. So they also didn't want all white men to vote, just the elite, the landed class. I think many of us know that. The property owning, educated, they felt that those were the qualities of virtuous citizens, that people who didn't own property and didn't have an education weren't virtuous enough to govern themselves. So in 1820, all white men finally got the right to vote, and not until 1820. So 1787 was the Constitutional Convention. So what is that, 33 years later. And then, of course, it wasn't until the 1900s that Black and brown and women people got the right to vote. So it was very clear and interesting. I just heard a podcast on, I think it was NPR. It was an NPR podcast about a woman who wrote a book about how the Constitution almost like glaringly on purpose didn't include rights for women, rights for Black and brown people and immigrants. It was an interesting podcast, but that's very true. So in short, the Constitution, like many documents, many things that come about, was a compromise. there was a big, huge fight about a lot of things in the Constitution, but especially the Electoral College, or especially how we would elect a president at the Constitutional Convention. And there was a fight between the people who wanted democracy and the people who are the elite, who thought that people couldn't be trusted to govern themselves and to elect qualified people who would do the right thing. And so when it came down to how they were going to elect a president, they said no to the popular vote because, again, they thought that some charismatic snake salesman was going to come in and con everybody, all the less virtuous people, and would ruin the country. Kind of interesting, right? Sadie, hi Sadie. So, that was one of the concerns, that they didn't trust the average person to be able to effectively choose effective leadership. The other concern with the popular vote was that the candidates would only pander to big cities. So if they were electing a president just based on majority vote, since the majority, there are concentrations of people in cities, they were afraid that candidates would ignore small towns, rural areas, and only focus their attention, not only their campaigning attention, but think about that. If we see that now, if a politician only cares about the big cities because that's all, those are the people who elect him, money's not going to go to the rural communities, laws aren't going to favor, the small communities. So they were really afraid that these smaller communities wouldn't get represented. And of course, the southern states, JJ, thank you so much for the $5 Sadie snack funds. She needs them. She goes through bully sticks like crazy. Oh, where's your bully stick? Oh, I have a bully stick. I have a bully. You want? Does everybody see? Do you see Sadie? Oh, say hi. You want a bully stick? Look at this, her favorite. So, and of course, the southern states lobbied because they wanted power. So there was a lot going on. The northern states wanted to phase out slavery because they kind of looked like idiots, right? Here was this new country trying to form a new government and a new country and a constitution saying that all men are created equal while they were enslaving other human beings. And so the North had already decided that they were going to start phasing it out. There were already laws outlawing international slave trade and things like that. So the tide was turning against slavery, and the southern states wanted to make sure that they were represented in this new United States. They wanted to make sure they had power. And since they were very much a part of the Constitutional Convention, they lobbied heavily to get their slaves counted as people for the Electoral College, because the Electoral College, I'm going to get that in a minute, is based on population, how many electors you get. But in addition to the Electoral College, the Senate and the House of Representatives, well, the House of Representatives more than the Senate, really how much power you have in Congress relies very much on your population with the House of Representatives as well. Getting ahead of myself. So the southern states were really lobbying. They wanted power. They wanted to try to convince the founding fathers that their slaves should count in their population for this governmental, for this congressional representation. And we all know how that turned out. The compromise was that each slave, no rights, zero rights whatsoever. They couldn't even read. They could get killed for reading, much less even considering the right to vote. And yet the southern states lobbied so hard for their slaves to count that they got the 3/5 rule passed. And basically what that means is for every 5 slaves they owned, it counted as 3 people, or each slave counted as 3/5 of a human being. And that's where that 3/5 rule came from. It came because southern states wanted to count the slaves they owned as part of their population, which is absolutely ridiculous, so that they could have more power in Congress. And so in order to get the Constitution ratified, the other founding fathers, the non-Southern, had to compromise. They had to say okay. And so not only was the Electoral College a compromise, so was the 3/5 rule, which gave slave owners more, power because of the slaves that they owned. And so eventually what came out of the Constitutional Convention was the Electoral College for electing a president. The founding fathers agreed to the 3/5. They agreed to the Electoral College rather than the popular vote. And they established Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution, which says the Electoral College is the formal body which elects the president and vice president of the United States. Each state has as many electors in the Electoral College as it has representatives and senators in the United States Congress, and the District of Columbia has 3. When voters go to the polls in a presidential election, they're actually voting for a slate of electors. Here's a fun fact. You ready for a fun fact? The first iteration of this. So, how many of you know this? How many of you knew that George Washington actually resigned in his second term? I'm looking at the comments. Did you guys know that? I didn't know that. George Washington resigned. And I think a lot of you are already talking about getting rid of the Electoral College. I'm going to talk in a minute why I don't think that's a good idea. You might be surprised. So, Traveling Lion. So nobody. So you did not know. Maximalists knew. So George Washington resigned in his second term. He was mindful of the precedent his conduct was setting for future presidents, and he feared that if he were to die in office while being in office, Americans would view the presidency as a lifetime appointment. So instead, he decided to step down from power. He was in just shy of 8 years. He decided to step down from power, providing the standard of a two-term limit. Then John Adams, his vice president, became president. And at the time, the Constitution made the electoral vote runner-up vice president in that case. So when the president is gone and the VP steps up, the current Constitution said that the electoral runner-up would be the vice president. So Adams had defeated, I don't remember, so Adams' defeated opponent became his vice president. I think it was Jefferson. So can you imagine? So what happened? Let's say, because we know that Trump would never step down, but let's say Obama stepped down because he did, whatever, he stepped down. And so Biden became president. And then wait, who ran against them? Was it Bush? And then Bush became so the person of the opposite party became his vice president. That's how it was set up. So they ended up, the election of 1800, Jefferson and his running mate, Aaron Burr, got the same number of electoral votes. An election went to the House of Representatives, and it just about caused civil violence by Jefferson supporters. It's really interesting to read history and see how much of what's going on now has happened before. So anyway, they decided that led to the 12th Amendment, which I actually just heard Robert Reich talk about today. The 12th Amendment, ratified in 1804, required electors to vote for a president and a vice president. But the 12th Amendment is something that's coming up because people are afraid Trump might use it. So you might want to look at that up and what the 12th Amendment means. All right. So, all right, I'm going to stop there. Did that make sense? Like I said, this is kind of hard for me to do, kind of reading off my notes and making sure I'm making sense when I'm just speaking live and not, yeah, Gary Nichols saw it. Robert Reichs. Yeah. Was that the one, how to make sure Trump doesn't steal the election? Did that make sense? That was another thing. Yes. That was another thing. When they were creating the Constitution, they never imagined there would be a two-party system. They never imagined that there would be a two-party system that would exclude everyone else, that would be deadlocked against one another. So I think a lot of the reason we are where we are today is, number one, because of a two-party system, and number two, because too many politicians are putting party over country and party over morals. And that's a lot of the reason we are where we are today. All right. Yeah, that made sense. Yes, it's making sense. Okay. All right. Sorry. I know that it might have been a little repetitive. This is normally some of the stuff I would edit out. Um, Kenneth says some of my information is wrong. Okay, what's wrong? Don't tell me some. Tell me what exactly is wrong. Because I don't think you're correct, because this is all completely out of my research. But Kenneth, tell me what's wrong. Tell me what I'm wrong about. Okay, great. Thank you, Kathy. So, what are electors and how do states get them and why? So let's go on to, this is, I think, the part that's probably most confusing for most people. I know it was really confusing to me. So, did you know that when you go to vote, you're not voting for, like, you're not voting for Biden, you're not voting for Trump, you are voting for a slate of electors who are then going to vote for a candidate. And this is how it works. So each state chooses electors. Actually, I think I should probably talk a little bit about, no, let's talk about electors first, and then we'll talk about how many they get. So the electors for every state gets a certain number of electors, and that's their electoral vote count. California has 55 electoral votes, which means they have 55 electors. Washington, D.C. has 3, which means they get 3 electors who then vote. And electors are party representatives, leaders, and loyalists who will vote for the candidate in your state who wins the most votes. So what happens is, in the spring or summer of an election year, they're either chosen by the political party before the election as a reward for their loyalty and support. So they're people who've just been in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party in that state for a long time. They've done a lot of work. They've risen up the party ranks. They've made a name for themselves, and they are rewarded with becoming an elector for that party. They can also be chosen by the party, a committee. So they're either chosen by a committee or by a party, what was it called? Convention, by the party's convention. So they are chosen. So they're two electoral slates are chosen even before the election. The Republican, so let's say California, for example, because I know that number off the top of my head, 55 electoral votes. So the Republican Party of California will choose 55 electors, and the Democrats of California will choose 55 electors. And whatever candidate wins the majority of votes in that state gets those 55 electors. So if Joe Biden wins California, he gets the Democratic electors. If Trump wins California, yeah, fat chance, he gets the 55 electors. Okay. And we're going to dive deep into that a little bit in a minute. But here's an interesting fact. In Florida, the governor chooses from each party's list of nominations. So in most states, the party itself chooses who the electors are. But in Florida, each party presents a list of nominations to the governor, and the governor chooses. Doesn't that seem a little like interesting? Like, I don't know if I would want a Republican governor choosing the Democratic electors. We're going to talk about that in a minute too. And in Pennsylvania, the presidential candidate submits a list of nominees to the Secretary of State to choose. So, for example, in Pennsylvania, Biden would submit a list of electors, elector nominees to the Secretary of State to choose. So, kind of interesting, huh? So there's a lot of reasons. Yeah, Homestead, there's a lot of reasons not to like the Electoral College. So when we vote, like I said, we're not exactly voting for the candidate. We are voting for the slate. We are voting for those 55 electoral votes, those 55 people who are then, in theory, supposed to promise to vote for that party's candidate. But that doesn't always happen, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So how is it determined how many electoral votes each state gets? Was it clear? Let me back up a second. Was it clear how electors are chosen? Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions about how electors are chosen? Does each state vote differently? Larry asks. I don't understand what you mean by that. What do you mean vote? No, that's not what I said. Wait, she stated blacks didn't vote until 1900. I said the 20th century. I said the 1900s, which is true. Time for electoral votes to be gone, Michelle says. I seem to remember that originally the state legislature selected the electors. So here's the Constitution does not require a state to choose. That the Constitution completely leaves that up to the state. So if that's true, it was true in maybe some states and then they changed it. The Constitution completely stays out of the electoral process, the process for electing electors. They completely left that up to the state. Okay? Yeah. Actually, Article 2 includes only the instruction to each state to appoint, in whatever way it likes, its presidential electors. The 12th Amendment then tells electors to meet in their states, to vote for president and vice president separately, and to transmit lists of their votes to the president of the United States Senate for counting. That's it, period. So if it's true, if that the state legislatures used to choose the electors, that would be state by state, because there is nothing in the Constitution that dictates how that has to be done. Okay. All right. So how many electors do the states get? Each state gets a certain number of electors based on their population, which is based on the census every 10 years. How many of you know what is going on with this year's census? So, for those of you who haven't heard, Trump decided to stop the census early this year. Instead of letting it go out another 2 or 3 weeks, so that means all the people who might have been counted aren't going to be counted, and it gives him the power to legislate something. I didn't research that, but look that up. He went all the way up to the Supreme Court to get the census ended early this year. First time ever census ended early. Well, I don't know about the first time ever. I'm not sure about that. All right. So each state gets a certain number of electeds based on population, which is based on the census every 10 years. And Trump is making sure everyone is not counted in this year's election. Coincidence? So since 1964, there have been 538 electors, and the number of electors a state gets is equal to their voting membership of Congress. So it's the number of senators plus the number of representatives. So every state automatically has 2 senators, and then the number of representatives is based on population. So when you add senators and reps, that's the number of electors every state gets. So California has 2 senators. They have 55 electoral votes. They have 2 senators. So that means they have 53 votes that come from the House of Representatives, come from that population number. And then DC, Washington, DC, which is not a state, which has no voting membership in Congress whatsoever, they decided to give Washington, D.C. 3 electors anyway in the Electoral College. So they do get it. They do get to vote, but they have no say in Congress, which is weird. Oh, thank you so much, Kathy, for the $50 super chat. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And all right. So, all right. So the breakdown. So that's how everybody. That's how all the states. The number of electors is chosen. Okay. So again, each state gets a certain number of electors. California, it's 55. Though there are 2 slates of electors chosen, one by each party. whatever party wins gets those electoral votes. So, fun fact, DC has 3 electors, but no voting representatives in Congress, though its population is bigger than Wyoming and Vermont. So, the population of Washington, DC is bigger than Wyoming and Vermont, and yet they've got no voting reps in Congress, but they do get a say in the presidential election, which was quite nice of them. And so most 48 states when you go to vote and the Electoral College is in play, what happens in 48 states is the candidate with the majority of the votes. So it doesn't matter. The candidate can win by 1 vote in California, yet they get all 55. Winner takes all in 48 states. They get all 55 electoral votes. Only Maine and New England do something different. Does anybody know what they do? So in Maine and New England, and we're going to, should I talk about this now? Yeah, in Maine and New England, they do districting. So what is it? Every county, they break it down by county. Every county who's like, if county A, Biden wins, they get 1 electoral vote. If in the next county Trump wins, he gets an electoral vote. So they assign their electoral votes by county so that the winner does not take all, but it's more of a popular vote count in that state. So we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But let's talk about this. So in 48 states where winner takes all, if a candidate wins Texas, New York, Florida, they automatically get 96 electoral votes. 3 of the biggest states, Texas, New York, and Florida, gives a candidate 96 votes. Whereas winning North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and West Virginia, 8 states, they only gain 31 electoral votes. Does that make any sense at all? So 3 states give them 3 times what 8 smaller states give them as far as electoral votes. And each candidate, so did I already tell you there's a total of 538 electoral votes at play in any presidential election, and each candidate that they are working to get 270. 270 is the magic number for electoral votes for a presidential candidate to win. That's the majority. Okay. Questions? Yes, Larry, because of the low population. Exactly. But we're going to talk about some of the arguments for and against the Electoral College in a minute. So if the argument for the Electoral College, yeah, we need the Electoral College so that the smaller states can have equal representation. Does that sound like they're getting equal representation? No, not really, right? And we're going to talk more about that in a minute. So how does a candidate win the electoral vote? But not the popular vote. So how, did Hillary Clinton win the popular vote by 3 million, but lose to Donald Trump? So what happens in that case is they win the Electoral College by slim margins, and then they lose the remaining states by a lot. So let's say they win their 270 electoral votes in those states, say 20 states. They win the 270 electoral votes, but barely. All they need to do is win by 1 vote in every state to get every single electoral vote. Say they win all of those states by barely, just 1 vote. They win the electoral votes. But then in all the other states that they didn't win the electoral vote, all the other states, that they did win, they win by a landslide. The other states that the winning candidate, like Trump, didn't win, they win by 70, 80, 90%. So they're winning a vast majority of those states, but they're losing. I'm sorry, did I really confuse that? You know what I meant, right? So if the winning, now I'm all confused. I don't know what I said. I can't rewind. What did I just say? You know what I mean. If you lose the popular vote, but win the electoral vote. You could have won the electoral vote by very slim margins. Maybe you won those just by one vote, but then you lost the the rest of the states that you didn't win by a landslide. And that's how a candidate wins the popular vote but loses the Electoral College and loses the presidency, which just so happens to have happened to two Democratic president candidates in the last 20 years. Okay. So, for example, you win the electors in 30 states. I'm going to shorten it for you in case I totally slaughtered that last one. You win the electors in 30 states by 51%. But in the states that didn't win, the other candidate won by 60, 70, 80%. And thereby, more people voted for the losing candidate. Okay. So once you have voted and once the electors have been chosen for the state, depending on whether the Democratic or the Republican candidate won, the electors then meet in December after the election in November. They meet in December after we all vote, and then they elect the candidate who got the most votes in their state. And the winner takes all in the 48 states. So if your state voted for Trump, the Republican electors then meet in December, and they pledged ahead of time that if their candidate wins, they will vote for Trump. But if there are any disputes, they must all be in by December 8th, December 14th, the meeting of the electors. They cast their votes, except if both the VP and the president are from their home state, they can't vote. So if both the president and the VP are from your home state, you actually can't vote, which I thought was interesting. And so what happened in 2016 is there were two or three electors in Democratic electors who refused to vote for Hillary Clinton, even though they signed up or they became electors in the states, and they vowed when they took the job to vote for Hillary Clinton. When it came down to it and Hillary Clinton won their state, they refused to vote for her. And it went all the way up into the Supreme Court. And just in July, the Supreme Court upheld the right of the states to be able to enforce any laws and any rules they wanted for the electors. So these electors were basically forced to go ahead and comply with the state's rules, even though it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. Make sense? Okay. All right. Does that make sense so far? This is a lot harder than I thought it would be, or it's as hard as I thought it would be to do this live. What do you think, Sadie? Can you sit? I explained it well. Did I? Because I have no idea what I'm saying. Okay, thank you. Okay. All right. So what are some of the problems with the Electoral College other than what we all think about it? So here's one thing that I read that I thought was really interesting. One candidate can go without getting one single vote in 39 states and DC and still become president. Let that sink in. Let's say Trump doesn't get a single vote in 39 states and DC, he can still become president. Does that sound like equal and fair representation and democracy to you? Okay, Sadie needs a bully stick. Where's your bully stick? There it is. There. I mean, does that sound right? That's disturbing, right? Exactly. Here, come on. Come over here. Look. So, so he could still become president by winning the popular vote. In 11 of the 12 states. I forgot to finish that statement. So he cannot in 39 states in DC not get a single vote. But if he wins the popular vote in 11 of 12 states with the most electors, California, Texas, New York, Florida, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Georgia, and Virginia, if he wins just 11 of those states, he becomes president. That is not equal and fair representation. So a lot of the people who defend the Electoral College say that that we need the Electoral College so that all the small states are represented. Does that sound like the small states would be represented if California, Texas, New York, Florida, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Georgia, and Virginia could ultimately be the only ones that call an election? I mean, that does not sound right at all. I really learned a lot about the misperceptions about how little states are represented in the Electoral College. I used to think that their votes counted for like 5 times of what they do in California, and that's not necessarily true. Another fun fact, 4 out of our 45 presidents have won without winning the popular vote. And we know Trumpster is one, and of course, George W. Bush. George W., right? Yeah. So some say that the problem isn't with the Electoral College at all. It's not like the Electoral College could work, but the problem is with the state laws that give the electoral votes to one candidate instead of doing the districting method, which would give the presidency to the winner of the most popular votes in the most states. I'm gonna go into that a little bit more in a minute. All right. So advocates, so the people who support the Electoral College say that it allows each state to be represented fairly in the process and prevents like recount chaos. But from what I just described, if 39 states can be completely ignored or cannot vote for, not even cast a vote for a candidate, and yet that candidate can still be elected through 11 of 12 bigger states, does that sound like they are getting every state is getting represented fairly? It doesn't sound like it. The people who support the Electoral College also say that it prevents the majority from ruling their lives. So that's the argument I think I hear that most of us hear the most. The small states, the rural states don't want the coastal liberal elites or the big city elites, don't want them telling them how to live. So again, this kind of goes back a little bit to the founding fathers not wanting majority rule. But is that a democracy? Or is that even a democratic republic? Do we really want to? So here's the thing. In my research, I saw a lot of people calling this, affirmative action for rural voters, right? It's kind of, the Electoral College is kind of affirmative action for rural voters. It's like, oh, well, we're not getting our fair share, so we're gonna work the system to give them an advantage. It's affirmative action for rural people. So by doing this, by implementing affirmative action for rural people, aren't we then giving rural people an unfair advantage over, and I think affirmative action is actually the wrong word because that's not what affirmative action does. But if we are giving an unfair advantage to rural people, then we're saying, okay, well, in order for the majority to not rule the minority, we're allowing the minority to rule the majority. That makes no sense, right? All right. So if the EC is supposed to prevent the majority from ruling the lives of the minority, one of the statistics that I found, and again, look in the video description for my sources, the fact is the 100 largest cities has just 500,000 more people than the rural areas at 59 million. So they both have roughly 59 million people. So the United States is pretty balanced, rural and city. The difference is only 500,000. So it doesn't make any sense that we're holding on to the Electoral College to benefit rural communities when we're almost balanced in that respect. They also say the people who are for the Electoral College not changing, staying the way it is, they think that it prevents candidates from ignoring their small states. But what studies have found, or just basic looking at it, is that states aren't ignored because they're small, but states are ignored because they're already entrenched in red or blue. And again, it's the, hold on, what is it? It's the what is it? The NPV, the National Popular Vote website, which is in the video description. They have, oh, actually the video is in the video playlist. They did this whole analysis where it shows that the candidates did 0 events, election events, in like 11 of, I think it was 11 of the smallest red states and 11 of the smallest blue states. 0 campaign events in any of those states, and they were small states. But it wasn't because they were small, it was because they were already red or they were already blue and they're not going to budge. What the Electoral College system is doing under a two-party system is making the focus only on the swing states. That's the only thing candidates care about right now. That we've got a two-party system, which if we want to talk about change, that's what needs to change. We need to get away from a two-party system. But we are so entrenched in our red and blue two-party system that 11 states here and 11 states here don't matter to opposing candidates because they know they're not going to win them. So they don't go there. So all the candidates are battling over these 11 swing states. That's where all of the attention is going, on the 11 swing states. So it has nothing to do about she's barking. So it has nothing to do with whether the state is small or rural or urban. It has to do with whether or not they think that they can gain those electoral votes in those states. And it's just because they're purple. It has nothing to do with the size or the rural or whether the people are liberal or it doesn't matter. That's where we are today with the Electoral College, that the only states that matter are the swing states. And again, look in the video description and watch this video. It shows how lots and lots of campaign events in these 11 states and 0. So that's really where we are with the Electoral College. So the opponents, so those who think that we need to get rid of the Electoral College, their arguments are they think it favors the rural states by giving all the votes to the winner of that state, and it gives the minority the rule. And again, I just argued that's not the case. So both the opponents and the advocates of the Electoral College have that wrong. It really doesn't favor the small states as much as we've all been led to believe. It really doesn't. It favors the swing states in a way. And every state, but here is one kind of minor detail that the opponents like to use, that every state, regardless of population, gets some electoral votes. So for instance, Wyoming has very little population, but they get 3 electoral votes anyway. So even though they don't have the population, they need representation, they need to have a say, and they get 3 electoral votes. And what that works out is their delegates account for 0.5% of the 538 electoral college votes. So their 3 electors count for 0.5% of the total electoral votes in the United States. However, their 564,000 residents only account for 0.1% of the population. Is that clear? So their Electoral College influence is 0.5%, whereas their population is only 0.1%. And conversely, California, with 40 million Californians, accounts for 12% of the population, but their state controls only 10% of the Electoral College votes. So while that's an argument that opponents of the Electoral College like to use, as the website that I got this information at points out, those are the two extremes. So the extreme on the overrepresentation in Wyoming and the underrepresentation in California, those are extremes. And they said everything else in the middle matches up to like less than 0.5%. So that on the extreme ends, yeah, it looks like a big disparity, but when you look at all the states that aren't on the edges, it really isn't that much of a disparity. Make sense? Sadie's going crazy, and I don't know why. You're not going outside, little girl? You can wait. So, make sense? All right. All right. So, all right. So I'm in about to wrap it up. What about should we abolish the Electoral College and elect the president based on the popular vote? And in my research, I found that this comes up every few years. To actually abolish the Electoral College, to completely get rid of it altogether, there are two methods for doing that. I think there might be coyotes out there. All right. So excuse her barking. So there's two methods for abolishing the Electoral College. Number one, Congress can propose an amendment by 2/3 vote of both chambers. So Congress has to propose amending the Constitution by 2/3 vote of both chambers. And then if the both chambers of Congress say, yeah, okay, then the amendment needs to be ratified by legislatures of 3/4 of all the states, or 38 states. So that's how an amendment to the Constitution happens. That's method one. Congress proposes an amendment by 2/3 vote in both chambers, and then goes to the states, and we need 3/4 or 38 states to ratify that amendment. And we're still trying to get the Equal Rights Amendment passed after 40, 50 years. And I think what do we have? 35 states. So we can see how long those things take. I don't know, maybe something like this would happen. But I think with all of the information that I've given, disinformation, I think a lot of the smaller states would be, wouldn't think that this is going to benefit them. So they wouldn't want to get rid of the college, the Electoral College. The second method for changing this, for abolishing the Electoral College, is, so let me back up a second. Even if one party had the presidency, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, you still need 38 states to ratify it. So I think that would be pretty hard to do. The second method is for legislatures of 2/3 of states. Legislatures of 2/3 of the states petition Congress for a constitutional convention. I don't think we've had a constitutional convention since the founding fathers. I forgot. I didn't look that up. Have we? I don't think we have. The Constitutional Convention, any changes to the Constitution can happen. So it's a whole convention, and which we might need, by the way, right? Things have changed a lot since they formed the Constitution, and slave owners formed the Constitution, and people who didn't think women and Black people should vote framed the Constitution, and LGBTQ rights weren't even thought about, and religion, and I mean, there's all kinds of things that were way different back then. So maybe we need one. But that's what they would have to do. 2/3 of states would have to petition Congress for a constitutional convention. The Constitutional Convention, anything can happen, but whatever changes they propose would have to still be ratified by 3/4 or 38 states. And we've never had a change to the Constitution this way. So we've never had a constitutional convention since 1787. All right. So cases for changing the Electoral College. Oh, did I talk about? Okay, yes. Since 2000 and the Gore v. Bush incident, bills have been introduced in every state to change how the Electoral College works. And one of the most popular is to kind of get around a constitutional amendment. And I really like this idea. I think it's brilliant. It is called the National Popular Vote. So what what's been proposed is that we switch to a district system in which the winner of each district gets one electoral vote, and the remaining two, those account for the Senate seats, go to the popular vote. Right? Doesn't that make sense? So in every state, California again, for example, they have 55 electoral college votes. They have 53 districts. In each of those districts, they count the vote. Whoever gets the popular vote for that district gets one electoral vote. Right? And then you add up all the electoral votes at the end so that every district of every state in every country, every district in every state gets equal and fair representation. And then the 2 extra Senate seat votes go to the majority winner in that state. I think that's brilliant. Don't you think that's brilliant? Yeah. And so there is a proposal. So since 2000, many bills have been introduced in every state to change how it works, and every bill to do this has failed. It's failed. And since so this is called the National Popular Vote, or NPV for short. It has gained popularity, and it bypasses the Electoral College without amending the Constitution, because you still kind of have an Electoral College, kind of, sort of, right? And so there is a movement now for states to join the NPV as a pact to promise to give all of their Electoral College. Oh, wait, is that the same? Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is different. So since then, there has been a movement for the National Popular Vote, which is another movement that is trying to get states to sign up to say that the states who join this NPV, or National Popular Vote Pact, they promise to give all their electoral votes to the candidate who wins the national popular vote, rather than the party that wins the state popular vote. I'm not sure I like that one as much. So basically, every state has to hold on to their votes, to their Electoral College votes, until the popular vote is counted, and then the states agree to give all of their votes to the person who wins the popular vote. I don't know. I like the district system better. What do you think? So this has not taken effect yet. They have 15 states so far on board, and the District of Columbia. So they need 270 votes for this national public vote to work. Because of course they need to be able to have a majority, because they need, they don't want people signing up and then saying, yeah, no, whoops, never mind, psych. So they need 270 votes for this to work. And so far they have 15 states and 196 votes for it to work. So these are the 2 changes to the Electoral College that are on the table. The first one is the district system, which they count by district, give an award delegates by district to the winner, or the national public vote, which means that every state just gives all of their votes to the person who won the national vote. And those are the 2 proposals that are on the table for changing the Electoral College. So I have gone through the history of the Electoral College and the Constitutional Convention, and how it started and why it was a compromise for the Founding Fathers, who didn't think the average Joe, you and me, were smart enough to be able to govern ourselves, and how we are still tied to a system based on the belief that only the elite can govern us. And that still holds today, and it has become even more dangerous in a diehard 2-party system, and it really is outdated in a number of ways. I talked about how the Electoral College works in each state, how the electors are chosen, how the number of delegates for each state is chosen. I've talked about what opponents of the Electoral College believe about it, what the advocates of the Electoral College believe, and the problems with both theories about it helping small states only, and I've kind of debunked that and showed that that's not really true, that it really only benefits the swing states in a 2-party system. And then finally I talked about abolishing, what it would look like to actually abolish it. And I talked about 2 proposals that have been put forth by legislators and different organizations to circumvent the Electoral College and maybe do something different. The district system, which assigns an Electoral College per district in each state, one elector per district for the winner of the popular vote, and then the national popular vote, which means that the states will dole out their electors to the winner of the popular vote. So I think I've covered a lot. I hope I made sense when I talk. I don't know if I do, but what questions? Oh my gosh, Cindy, Trent, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Gracie, Seeking Adventures, thank you for the $20 super chat. It means a lot. Thank you so much. Thumbs up, everyone. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. And all right, do you have any questions for me? Did it make sense? Yes, thank you. I always learn something, Pam says. Glad you did the show. I was a political science major and so many people have no clue. Now, because of you, so many people are informed. Thanks, Angie. I can't believe how much I learned. There was one thing. What did I have to go? How electors are chosen. I had to go to like 10 different sources to get an answer on that. I really didn't know how electors, like who are electors, where do they, I even though I've looked it up before, I didn't really know about that. So I learned a lot too. And Denise says it made sense of a confusing system. Good. I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you. The Dems want pop. Oh, geez. Oh, stupid people really just need to go away. All right. And Ralph, you keep blocking Larry. That's so funny. All right. What about redistricting? We could talk for days. Redistricting and, there's a million different things. Oh, I'm sorry. I completely went to the other computer. I'm confused. Hang on. I want to put this down since it's getting dark. Okay. Let's do this. Sorry about that. I was completely looking over there. I forgot I was on a different computer. Hi, everyone. Any questions? Did I leave anything out? Was there anything you were hoping I would cover that I didn't about the Electoral College? I can't talk about everything. The district system would be a disaster in states like North Carolina because of the location of the population, unless you manage to draw the districts where there is a balance of rural and urban. I don't understand that. Why? I don't understand why that would be a disaster. I mean, the districts are already drawn. Your House of Representatives are already based on districts that are already drawn. Those districts would be the same for the Electoral College. So each House of Representative district would have would have an Electoral College vote. Does that make sense? Yeah, gerrymandering definitely affects, along those same lines, gerrymandering does affect the Electoral College. Ranked choice voting. Yeah. Ranked choice voting. We did that in the caucus. That was pretty interesting. And it's a lot. It's kind of complicated. I don't know if I told you all that I volunteered to run a caucus in my hometown for the primary, for the Democratic primary. Very interesting experience. And that's what we do. That's what we did for early voting. We did ranked so that in the caucus we could choose. Yeah, that was interesting. Florida is having a negative impact on trying to redraw the districts, constantly fighting. You know what I think we need to do on the districts? I don't know how. I feel like some states have already done this or have proposed third-party organizations go in to draw districts, completely nonpartisan completely nonpartisan districting. We can't leave it up to the politicians to draw districts because there's going to be gerrymandering. Thank you, LS. Thank you so much. I'm glad you look forward to them. I'm glad you all find them enjoyable. I really like. Have we been on 2 hours? No way. Have we been on 2 hours? No, this laptop is an hour ahead. All right, 1 hour. Whew. I still can't get my talks down. Oh my gosh. One of these days I'll do and as I see it, I'll try to keep it at 15 minutes. Yeah, ranked choice makes sense for multiple candidates like a primary, Gary. Yes. Although if we were ever to be able to get away from our two-party system, then it might work. But pretty short for off the cuff. It wasn't completely off the cuff. I mean, I did a lot of research and had a lot of notes. And that was the thing, is I didn't want to read the whole time. But with my notes in front of me, I was afraid I'd be reading. Oh, and that's so sweet. Get some infrared camera capability to see your wildlife at night. Also, other human denizens of the night. You know, I've been thinking about that because Sadie gets up and she scares the crap out of me. I actually have to close the curtains at night when I go to bed. I used to like to leave the curtains open and look at the sky. But if I leave the curtains open, she's looking outside, barking and waking me up. So I've been thinking about that, getting some outdoor infrared cameras. So thank you, Anne, very much. I appreciate that. Lynn says, you told me a lot I didn't know. Yay, like what? I'm curious. Uncle Mo, thank you. Oh, yeah, good job, moderators. Yay, thank you, moderators. They all are volunteers. I just want to say, who do we have here? We have Ralph. We have Anna Gypsy. We have, I know all their real names. Haven on Wheels. We have Paige Neary and Carol Animus. We have a lot of, and they're all volunteers. They do this all for me, for us, out of the kindness of their hearts. So did I tell you guys? Oh, I told the moderators on Facebook. I'm going to have to, when we all get together, I'm going to have to take you out for dinner. Yeah, Ralph said he's doing his part to educate the voters down here. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, moderators, big round of applause for the moderators. Yay! Thank you all so much. All right. What happened? Thank you, moderators. Started checking out your sources. Good, solid, reputable sources. Yes, I do. Try. I thank you. I vet all of my sources. And when I was doing my research and a couple keyword searches that I came up, and there were some less than reputable sources that came up, and a couple I wasn't familiar with, and I had to look them up and see where they rank on credibility. And I not only in my personal life am I trying to make sure that I'm getting my information from reputable sources, but especially here. Like I said, I don't want to be another person spreading false, misleading information. And so I take this role that on this series, I take this very, very seriously. And that's why I have what did you think about this? Do you like the pre-recorded ones better? Or did you like this live? I did. What did you think? I keep saying, what did you think? And then I want to tell you what I thought. But what did you think? You like the live? Oh, really? You like the live? Really? Even though I feel like I rambled sometimes? Okay. The live comments. Live is better. Really? Even though I ramble. I feel like I ramble live. We all ramble. Yeah. It's funny though. Sometimes I talk, like sometimes even just in regular videos, I'll just turn on the camera and start talking, and I'll get off and I'll be like, oh my God, what did I say? That made no sense. And then I'll edit it and I'm like, wow, I made more sense than I thought I did. So it's just kind of hard to monitor yourself live. You like the live? All right. Ralph Brown says Ralph is a sucky name. You guys are funny. Larry A, thank you. You'll rewatch and refer to your additional playlists. I always learn so much from you. Thank you so much. I learned so much from me too when I start doing the research. So you all help me become more informed as well. And so, like I've said a million times, I appreciate your interest in these videos. That gives me, I've said this about my channel in general, that if I had another job, I wouldn't still be making videos, because life, and the same is with this, that I don't make the time all the time to do the things that I really like to do, because life, and this gives me the excuse to research and read and learn. And so I thank you for your interest in this, and allowing me to do something I really enjoy doing. So thank you. I am thinking about a podcast. Thinking about a lot of things. We'll see. So you do like the Eyes Wide Open, likes the live. Thank you. Led Zeppelin song is stuck in my head. You know what song has been stuck in my head? I am woman, hear me roar. Ba, 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 da, 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 da. That song has been stuck in my head for like a week. Martin says, hey, a podcast. Yeah. Live is more interactive. Helen Reddy. Yep. Love that song. So, all right. If you don't have any more questions, I think I will go. Thank you all so much for being here. Podcast would be good. Then I can drive and listen at the same time. Yeah. I've had a couple ideas for podcasts for quite a while. Yeah, we'll have to see. You would like this as a podcast? Kathy, oh, you're so sweet, Kathy Adam. Thank you. She says I don't ramble. Thanks for the wonderful ramble, Carolyn. Podcast ramble too. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Shelly. Thank you all so much. Hi, Denise. No, not this as a podcast. What I would do is what a lot of other YouTube podcasters do, is I would do a podcast and still post it here for those who don't do podcasts. So you would do both. So all right, you all, thank you so much for being here. I hope that was interesting. And thanks for being here. I appreciate you all very, very, very much. And if you haven't already, please give me a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed, and tune in. I'm going to try to get a video up Thursday. Maybe not, though. If not, definitely Sunday, my Sunday night travel video. I appreciate you. Thank you, Homestead. I appreciate that. And Sadie's, come here, Sadie. Want to say bye? Come here. Come here. Want to say goodbye? Want to say goodbye? Oh, yeah. Oh, your kisses. Sadie says bye. Say bye. Oh, kiss. She's a very aggressive kisser. She's excited. Okay. Enough. Thank you. Can you lay down? Yeah. Oh, what a good girl. Can you settle? Very good. Look at that. Look at that. All right, you all. Thank you all so much. I'll see you soon. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Be kind. Vote. And not only vote, help people vote. Go pick people up. Make sure everybody you know is registered. Vote. We need a landslide. And if you haven't seen Robert Reich's newest video about how to make sure Trump doesn't steal the election, look it up on YouTube. It's not in my list because I didn't use it for this. Robert Reich, R-E-I-C-H. He's brilliant. Great. Thank you all. Vote. I'll see you soon. I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye.